question to you, Ms. Blackler, is that you've been writing several books, you have co-authored with several authors, but you have three seminal books which really draw my attention. And I want to mention those three seminal works that you have done for my audience. One, of course, is The Meanings of Halal, a Standard in a Global Market. Then The Halal Market, or the Invention of a Tradition. Brotherhood and Its Networks, The Investigation is your latest book. Now, my question is, why are you so invested in Muslim Brotherhood and the halal economy in the world? What is the motivation?
J'ai étudié le frérisme depuis que j'ai rencontré les frères musulmans, c'est-à-dire il y a 30 ans. La première fois que j'ai rencontré donc, les frères musulmans, c'était à la mosquée El Ouda de Bordeaux. Je ne savais pas d'ailleurs qu'ils étaient frères musulmans, mais je m'étais engagée dans des recherches sur l'islam dans un espace urbain pour voir un peu, je voulais étudier la façon dont l'islam se développait dans la région de Bordeaux, qui en étaient les acteurs, quelles étaient leurs priorités, quelles étaient leurs pensées. Et la première fois, donc, c'était dans cette mosquée El Ouda. Je ne sais pas qui ils sont et je m'interroge parce qu'ils sont très différents des responsables de mosquées, des imams que l'on voit à l'époque, qui sont plutôt des hommes des primo-migrants, des gens qui viennent pour travailler en Europe, en France, et qui sont en train, au tout début, de faire venir leur famille. Et là, je rencontre des étudiants plutôt cultivés, parlant un français tout à fait correct, avec un accent, mais un français tout à fait correct, qui sont dans une autre dynamique, qui sont dans une dynamique d'invitation à l'islam, dans la dynamique de la dawa. Ça me paraît tout à fait intéressant parce que nous sommes dans une époque, la fin du XXe siècle, où la sécularisation a tendance à éloigner les Français, d'où qu'ils viennent d'ailleurs, de leur religion. Et donc, il se dit à l'époque où je commence à travailler que les jeunes musulmans, de toute façon, finiront par quitter l'islam pour certains ou par se séculariser ou pratiquer une forme très soft, très douce d'islam. Et moi, quand je rencontre ces personnages, ces étudiants, ces jeunes médecins, je n'ai pas du tout cette impression. J'ai au contraire l'impression qu'ils sont tout à fait fiers et tout à fait volontaires pour diffuser l'islam autour d'eux et j'ai très nettement affaire à des prosélytes. Ce qui m'étonne beaucoup, et quand je rapporte ça à l'université, on me fait comprendre qu'il s'agit d'une exception, que je suis tombée sur une particularité. Et j'ai l'impression au contraire que c'est une tendance qui s'installe. Je le vois parce que quand je vais enquêter, quand je vais suivre en fait les femmes, puisque moi je vais suivre les femmes, c'est un milieu qui est non mixte, je m'aperçois qu'elles sont dans une dynamique de partage et de conversion. D'ailleurs, c'est ce qu'elles veulent faire immédiatement quand j'arrive, elles veulent me convertir.
So when this experience you had at the university, where on one hand, there was this projection that Islam was reforming, on the other hand, your personal experience that they were trying to convert women, what did this lead you to? Was Muslim Brotherhood at that time really trying to proselytize towns and cities and people who were not aware of what Islam is? Tell us more about this process where Muslim Brotherhood penetrated the society, entered the networks within institutions like universities. Can you explain this more?
Alors, déjà, ils se sont adressés aux jeunes. La première chose qu'ils font, c'est qu'ils ciblent les enfants et qu'ils ciblent les étudiants. Alors que les imams traditionnels s'adressaient plutôt aux anciens, eux se sont adressés directement aux jeunes en français. Donc, à la fois, ils voulaient leur transmettre l'arabe, parce que beaucoup de jeunes musulmans ne parlaient plus l'arabe, ou alors parlaient le maghrébin, ou le berbère, mais ils ne parlaient pas l'arabe et certainement pas l'arabe classique. Donc, d'une part, il s'adressait aux jeunes en français et d'autre part, il leur apprenait l'arabe. Mais il y avait bien les deux composantes linguistiques. Alors que les anciens imams s'adressaient à eux un petit peu en langage de maghrébin ou en turc, mais avec une conception de l'islam et de la société environnante qui était celle en fait des pays d'origine et qui s'adressait beaucoup plus aux parents. Les frères musulmans vont aussi transmettre une nouvelle littérature, c'est-à-dire que les parents avaient transmis l'islam de la tradition et ils vont expliquer aux jeunes que ce n'est pas le vrai islam, que l'islam authentique, c'est l'islam dont ils vont distribuer les livres, c'est-à-dire les salafis. Généralement, ce sont des ouvrages salafis qui viennent de la Ligue islamique mondiale, c'est-à-dire des ouvrages saoudiens, plus la littérature des frères musulmans, donc Hassan el-Banna, Youssef el-Qardawi et des personnages comme ça. Et donc, ils vont faire entrer cette littérature chez les jeunes et l'islam va devenir quelque chose qui n'est pas seulement une tradition religieuse, mais un mode de vie. Les frères musulmans, en fait, ils sont dans une perspective de conversion d'abord des élites, de production d'une élite dès les années 90. Alors évidemment, à cette époque-là, je ne le sais pas, je ne me rends pas compte parce que je n'ai pas identifié les frères musulmans, donc je ne sais pas qu'ils ont un plan. Et il va me falloir beaucoup d'années pour réaliser qu'ils ont un plan. Et pourquoi il m'a fallu tant de temps? C'est parce que tous les spécialistes de l'islamisme et du frérisme et des frères musulmans en Europe, il n'y en a pas beaucoup, mais il y en a quelques-uns, nous disaient qu'ils avaient abandonné l'idée de plan de conversion et de plan vers la société islamique mondiale.
Do you think that this whole movement of the Muslim Brotherhood had anything to do with petrodollar economy, had anything to do with how the West was going out there in Middle East and extracting oil? Do you think that there is a connection there?
The connection is the money. There is a huge amount of money to build a mosque and to organize Islamic associations who were sent from the Saudi Arabia, who was allied to the Muslim Brotherhood against Egypt. So this money went through, this petro money went to Europe, all around Europe, to fund the mosque and the Islamic activities. And so, of course, Muslim brothers were the first to use this money to display his ideology.
Do you think this whole globalization that many people are now talking about, which began with, of course, trade, and then slowly went beyond trade in the developing world and also in the underdeveloped world, it's that the whole idea of globalization is at the core of Muslim Brotherhood wanting to establish Sharia, wanting to establish Islamic rule in democracies in non-Islamic world?
Alors, dans mon livre « Le marché halal ou l'invention d'une tradition », ce que j'essaie de montrer, c'est qu'il y a au contour des années 70-80 une alliance objective entre un néolibéralisme de plus en plus décomplexé et un néo-fondamentalisme musulman et donc islamiste qui se rencontrent. Et la mondialisation économique va permettre notamment le développement du marché halal international. Et ce marché halal international ne fait pas que distribuer des produits, il distribue de la norme. Donc, ils inventent des nouvelles réglementations pour que la viande soit halal, puis pour que la nourriture soit halal, puis pour que les médicaments soient halal, puis pour que les espaces soient halal, puis pour que les voyages, que les banques, etc., soient halal et donc réservés aux musulmans. Ça s'est fait progressivement, c'est-à-dire que dans les années 80-90, c'est d'abord l'invention d'une réglementation industrielle du halal pour la viande, ensuite au cours des années 90 pour la nourriture, puis au cours des années 2000, grâce aux réglementations internationales du Codex Alimentarius, ça sera plutôt les tout ce qui est non comestible, mais que le corps peut absorber, mais qui est non comestible, qui aussi va devenir halal. C'est aussi donc les voyages halal et aussi la mode modeste, ça fait partie aussi du marché halal. Donc, c'est beaucoup d'argent, bien sûr, mais plus que de l'argent, c'est aussi une nouvelle manière d'utiliser le marché pour diffuser dans le monde entier leurs normes.
Let me be the devil's advocate. Liberalism, which is the fountainhead of Western civilization, which is essentially the underlying fundamental of the Western civilization democracy. And many people would argue that since we are a liberal society, liberal civilization, what is wrong with Muslim Brotherhood coming to Europe and propagating its point of view, selling its product, labeling all these products under a halal category, calling everything that is coming through Islamic countries, calling it halal. So a lot of people might say that it's okay if other communities have the right and the authority to propagate their ethnicity, propagate their point of view. What is wrong with the Muslim Brotherhood propagating its point of view and pushing its own economy?
Il n'y a rien de problématique en soi à partir du moment où le contrat social l'accepte. C'est-à-dire que si on dit aux Français, aux Européens, voilà, les musulmans vont s'organiser, vont organiser leur économie, leurs normes à eux, leurs écoles à eux, ils vont donc suivre leur islam comme halal way of life, eh bien, vous verrez que les Européens et les Français en particulier ne seront pas d'accord avec ça. Ils ne veulent pas d'une société à deux vitesses, une société pour les non-musulmans et une société pour les musulmans, parce que, bien sûr, ça créerait ce qu'on appelle le séparatisme. Donc, une société libérale qui accepte ça, pourquoi pas? Mais nos sociétés européennes, et la société française en particulier, n'est pas sur ce modèle-là. C'est un modèle libéral assimilationniste. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut des valeurs communes, un certain nombre de valeurs communes, un certain nombre d'institutions qui va réguler l'ensemble de ces valeurs, les faire appliquer, les faire reconnaître, notamment l'école, qui joue évidemment un rôle très important, l'école publique, dans lesquelles donc on doit partager un certain nombre de pratiques qui sont liées à des valeurs, c'est-à-dire des valeurs d'égalité, de liberté, de fraternité en ce qui concerne la France. Donc, le problème, c'est qu'on aurait une vision de la société libérale complètement anarchique en réalité. Or, le libéralisme, ça n'est pas ça. Le libéralisme, ça s'applique aux valeurs, ça s'applique à l'économie, mais ça n'est pas laisser un groupe, disons, un groupe religieux modifier en fait le contrat social. C'est ça, c'est une société libérale, mais bien informée. Si les musulmans veulent, par exemple, développer le marché halal, ça ne pose pas de problème, sauf si ça implique une réorganisation de la société et de la commensalité, de la convivialité. Or, justement, si vous commencez à si vous faites rentrer, par exemple, le halal à l'école ou le voile à l'école, vous changez la convivialité, la commensalité et les valeurs consensuelles du contrat social qui permettent à tous, avec ces différences, de pouvoir quand même dialoguer, de pouvoir s'entendre sur des valeurs fondamentales. Les valeurs fondamentales des islamistes et des frères musulmans ne sont pas les mêmes que les valeurs fondamentales qui sont le produit historique de nos sociétés européennes. Elles ne vont pas ensemble. Vous avez une société, vous avez des théocrates, les frères musulmans sont des théocrates, et vous avez en face une démocratie. Les deux ne sont pas compatibles.
Well, some of your critics who, in fact, have reviewed your books, they say that Ms. Blackler has not been nuanced about Muslim Brotherhood. She should make a differentiation between Muslim Brotherhood and jihadists. and she should also look at how Islam is not a homogeneous philosophy or a certain doctrine. And from their perspective, when you talk about Muslim Brotherhood, you are demonizing the entire Muslim community. Do you think that there is any substance to such allegations, to such accusations against you?
Je ne peux pas répondre à quelque chose que je n'ai pas dit. Je fais très bien la différence entre les frères musulmans et les djihadistes, je fais très bien la différence entre les frères musulmans et les conservateurs. Je propose simplement dans mon livre un nouvel ensemble conceptuel pour comprendre le frérisme, pas la confrérie des frères musulmans, pas les militants frères musulmans, mais le frérisme, c'est-à-dire l'idéologie qui s'est développée à partir des frères musulmans, d'ailleurs la branche arabe, mais aussi la branche indo-pakistanaise de Maududi, donc ces deux branches-là, et j'essaye de montrer comment ils pensent et comment ils se sont introduits en fait dans l'espace mental des musulmans d'abord et de la société en général après. I'm not addressing Muslim Brotherhood as a brotherhood. I'm addressing the way they think and the way what I call brotherism has been introduced in Europe and in Western countries in a campus, in a university campus with students who arrive from Egypt, from Pakistan, from Lebanon, from all these countries who were studying in Europe, and they realized that their project to build Islamic society in the Muslim world, in their own country, was impossible. And so they decided to stay in Europe. There was a lot of controversies at that time, and they decided to stay in Europe and to give them a new mission, because otherwise they are Muslim, they should go back to Muslim country. But they decided to change the rule and say, okay, we are going to give us a new mission. We will Islamize the world. If we cannot go back to Islam, then Islam will come to us. In fact, it is this change. And so my book was to explain this new ideology, which I call Brotherism, which is a mixing of mainly Muslim Brotherhood as a brotherhood, the Egyptian and the Syrian interpretation, and Jamaat-e-Islami of Maududi, Al-Qardawi for the Arabic part, and Maududi for the Indo-Pakistanis. And it's these two branches gave what I call Brotherism, and start to elaborate plans, several plans, to re-Islamize the non-Muslim world.
As a journalist who's been covering Islamic terrorism, who has been following the terror groups out of Pakistan, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Hizbul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and later on we have had Al-Qaeda in Indian subcontinent, ISIS also in the Indian subcontinent. Looking at their manifestos, looking at what they are really demanding, the establishment of Ummah, the establishment of Caliphate, the establishment of basically Islamic rule. How is Muslim Brotherhood different from, let's say, any of these organizations who also have a similar manifesto, who also have the same ideology, whether it's Jamaat-e-Islami, which emerged from India, or Deoband, again, also in India, or Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt? What is the difference? I mean, Wahhabism, Salafism, Muslim Brotherhood, all these organizations, Jamaat-e-Islami, Deoband, they all believe, one, in the establishment of Islamic rule. They believe in Sharia. They believe in the notions of discrimination between men and women, between other minorities. They believe in discrimination also among people on the basis of religion, because they believe that their religion is the supreme religion. So what is the difference really for a lay person?
There are many differences. In this book, I study only the Brotherism, but also there is also Wahhabo Salafism. You have also Deobandis. You have also other groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir or other groups. They all want the same things. They want the Islamic world. The Caliphate is the end. I mean, that's the aim, and it's the end. But some Islamic movement which are not belonging to the Salafi, because they're all Salafi, they all are grounded on the sacredness of Quran, and all the example of the first Muslims. That's the Salafi basis. And Muslim Brotherhood belong to this Salafi basis. And of course, you can have other movements like some type of Sufi, but you also have Sufi Salafi. But you can also have Sufi who are nothing to do with Salafi, which are not do not have this caliphate. It's more like it's metaphoric, but for Salafi, it's not metaphoric. This is the aim. But the difference between them are the context where they act and the means. And Brotherism is extremely adaptable and extremely flexible. That's his particularity. Another particularity is to try to influence all the other movements belonging to Islam, Sunni Islam, to use them to, like an orchestra, if you want, who could manage the violins, then the trumpets, and so they are in the middle. It's wasatiyah, the Islam of wasatiyah, of the middle way. And they want to use all the competencies of this different group and stay in the middle. They know that they will act in a very, very long time. So it's not for tomorrow. The Islamic world is not, the caliphate is not for tomorrow. It's for after tomorrow, but they keep the line. And they don't fight against the state or the politics. They fight through the culture, the soft law, the soft power, the economy. You see, so they gain influence through the alternative ways, as long as the politics is not practicable. So they are very pragmatic and very opportunistic. And they have this position of being not takfiri. They are not takfiri. They try to use the competence of each, even if they don't like, for example, the jihadist. But when there is a jihadi attack, they try to make it benefit for themselves, for their cause. Even if they disapprove the violence, they will use it when it happens, because they are pragmatic. And that is very well explained by Youssef El-Qaradawi. And they also have a very structural view of the Islamic society. That's the input of Maududi, with his 100 books on the way Islamic society. I call him the engineer of the system Islam. From the Sunnah and the Quran, he imagined all societies completely self-sufficient, necessary and sufficient. So this mix of the system Islam engineered by Maududi and the action of Qaradawi, which act by plans, I call this système d'action, system of action, and it's the way I characterize the Brotherism. In the Brotherism, another characteristic is there is a vision, there is an identity, and there is a plan. It's a game with VIP, because the Brotherism is considering itself as elite of the Islamist movements. So the vision, they have a specific vision they will transmit to the young people, to the elite, but also to the women, to the workers, because they think also by sectors. There is a vision of the past, there is a vision of the future, which has to be completely different from the Western one. There is identity which go over all other identities. You can perfectly be Indian, French, or anything, but you have to be Muslim first, absolutely first. There is two identity, one male, one female, and nothing else. And being Muslim, and after it's sub-identities. And there is a plan, this perspective, which is always driving all the activities.
Well, I'm going to come back to what the critics say, whether it's about India, Europe. They're saying that Muslims, ordinary Muslims who may not believe in Islamism, who may not believe in Muslim Brotherhood, who may not have any association with, say, Jamaat-e-Islami or Al-Qaeda or any other Islamist organization, whether belonging to a civil way of converting people to their ideology or through coercion and through terror like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And critics may say that such innocent Muslims are being persecuted and being demonized by people, by academics who are writing about Muslim Brotherhood and writing about halal economy. And they often compare, and in fact, the left also compares the situation of ordinary Muslims being demonized, the way Jews were being demonized, their economy was being targeted before the Second World War, when the Jewish ethnic cleansing and genocide was in the process. Yeah, do you agree with this kind of an argument? What is the logic of this argument?
This victimization is outrageous, and it's and minimize what happened to the Jews during the Second World War. It's a way to take their place and to transform this victimization in a political power. This is outrageous. I spend my time to explain that the Muslim Brotherhood is not Islam. It is an interpretation of it. It is perfectly possible to be a Muslim without to be a brother, of course, but it's more and more difficult because Muslim Brotherhood are dominant in the Islamic landscape of France for 30 or even more 40 years. They have dominated all the institutions of transmission of Islam. They have discredited Islam of the parenthood, of the parents. They have become hegemonic in the field of Islam. So, yes, it's important to remember there was Islam without halal, there was Islam without hijab, there was Islam which were perfectly able to assimilate in the French society by working on itself, by working on the text. But this process was stopped 30 years ago by the Muslim Brotherhood, who prefer work on the context. They abandoned the idea to work on the text because the text is sacred, but they wanted to work on the context, which means on the society. So to change the society to make France or to Europe adapted to Islam, to their view of Islam.
Let us say that you made a very critical point. You're saying that there was an Islam without hijab, without halal, and it was possible for that kind of Islam to get easily assimilated in France. So is it possible for Muslims to go back in time and to be representatives of that kind of Islam, which was easily assimilating with other cultures? Is it possible?
It is possible, but it becomes very, very difficult. Because they are threatened, they are accused to be traitors, They are accused to be against their community. They are rejected sometimes by their family. And if they want to go out of Islam, which is normal in the process of secularization, for example, the French, more than half have abandoned their religion. So it would be normal that Muslims arriving in a new context will abandon, part of them abandon their religion. It's part of the process of secularization. The problem is they can't, because they will be threatened. They will be, they cannot work in their community. They cannot have normal relation with their family, because they will be rejected. For example, if they don't want to eat halal, it's a problem for them. If they don't follow the Ramadan, it will be a problem for them. If they want to quit Islam, they can be murdered. So they make the possibility of assimilation of Islam extremely difficult. So it is possible in theory, but in practice, it's more and more difficult. So we have to, this is why we have to understand what Islamist and Brotherism did over the 30, 40 years to deconstruct what they have done, and to become a possible society of assimilation of Islam.
Well, I spoke to a lot of Muslim youth also here in France, even back home in India. When you talk to Muslim youngsters, they often say that, well, the West has been nasty towards Muslim nations in the last 4 decades, or even more. Like they refer to here, for example, in France, they refer to occupation and colonization of Algeria by France. They refer to history where Muslim nations were colonized by the West, by the Western powers, and they feel that now is the time for a payback. They talk in terms of revenge. Yeah. What would you say to that, to such youth who have been fed about history of colonization?
Well, I think they are not concerned. I mean, they are descendants of what happened to their parents or grandparents, but they are not concerned. So the revenge has no hand in this case, because they can, we can imagine that they will ask whatever they want in the name of what happened decades and decades ago. C'est du chantage politique, c'est très habile, ça joue sur notre culpabilité. Malheureusement, nous avons beaucoup de culpabilité. Il y a aussi une Europe qui a développé une certaine haine de soi. Et effectivement, mais il faut arrêter ce chantage-là. Il faut dire non. Il faut qu'on soit très clair et dire non.
Well, we see your work have also established links between Muslim Brotherhood, Jamaat-e-Islami, and other organizations. I want to understand: is only Europe under this insidious way of Muslim Brotherhoodism, or is this network spread across the world? Who are their main targets, and where all are they present, and what kind of networks do they have across the world? Is Europe the only playing field, or is it beyond Europe as well?
Comme je l'ai expliqué, le frérisme veut éviter le politique et passer plutôt par la culture, l'économique et le soft power généralement, ou la soft law. Et l'Europe est évidemment idéale pour ça, parce que l'Europe est donc régulée pour certains de ces secteurs marchands, de sécurité, immigration, etc., par l'Union européenne, qui n'a pas de tête, qui n'a pas de véritable politique, qui a une politique très libérale et qui ne prend pas en compte en fait le jeu de ces minorités religieuses prosélytes. Ces minorités prosélytes lui sont aveugles. C'est la raison pour laquelle les frères musulmans ont choisi l'Europe en premier. Les islamistes ne s'arrêtent pas à l'Europe, mais pour former l'élite, le frérisme, puisque moi je parle plutôt du frérisme, s'intéresse en particulier à l'Europe parce qu'il y a de l'argent, parce qu'il y a la technologie et parce qu'on peut créer vraiment l'élite qui va pouvoir diffuser ses idées dans le monde.
In fact, I also met a lot of French activists in the last several days here in Paris and elsewhere. And I heard a lot of people talking about this, and now to the point where activists are basically saying that European Union is holding back France from its own culture, from its own ideas and its own worldview. Do you see the rise of this segment of society in France where they put an end to this guilt trip and they seek assimilation or integration of both Muslim and Christian and other communities in France?
Yes, obviously. European Union is a break for the integration and assimilation because of the way they manage the immigration, and also the way, and I developed that in my book, the way they subsidy, pay for all the association against racism, against Islamophobia. We are absolutely not anti-racist, really. They are not anti-Islamophobia. They make up the Islamophobia and the racism, and then they fight it, so that makes a lot of money. And it's by €1,000,000 for all the Europe. They subsidy this association. Then in each of the country of European Union, they receive the money, they receive legitimacy. Spending their time to explain that France is a bad country because of colonialism, UK is a bad country because there is a racism in the police, and so on. And it's never ending. So they don't want a solution. They just want to make up problems and make paying for solving the problems they built. So I think more and more, it happened with the Brexit. The European citizens are getting fed up of this management.
India, for the last, in fact, we could say several centuries, been dealing with this issue. We have had systemic systemic patterns of ethnic cleansing. For example, I come from Kashmir, where we saw ethnic cleansing in 1990. We saw how Jamaat-e-Islami, which was being controlled by Pakistan and Pakistan's army and ISI, who were controlling Jamaat-e-Islami, and how they spread the idea of Islamic Jihad, Islamic Caliphate, and later on terror organizations sprung up with their support. And that idea has seeped into other parts of the country also. We have a lot of youth went from Kerala to join ISIS. We have had issues. We have had something called love jihad, where boys are, marrying Hindu girls and forcibly converting them. We have seen similar patterns in Pakistan, where a very insignificant minority of Hindus are now wiped out because girls are repeatedly getting raped and then abducted and then converted to Islam.
Je crois savoir effectivement qu'en Inde, les islamistes sont très puissants et s'appuient sur le frein aussi du sécularisme. C'est-à-dire que le sécularisme est devenu le premier défenseur en fait des islamistes politiques. Puisque c'est ce que j'ai remarqué, en tout cas, dès qu'on revendique en fait l'hindouisme ou la culture hindoue, ou la primauté du territoire, on est immédiatement considéré comme islamophobe au nom du sécularisme et du vivre ensemble. Donc il se passe un petit peu la même chose qu'en Europe, il me semble.
A lot of people who have been on the left side of the political philosophy in the West today seem to be actually justifying or apologizing for Islamists. They, in fact, think that every criticism that is being thrown at Muslim Brotherhood or other organizations who are working at a very societal level, who are trying to use different tactics and methods to arrive at the end goal. They would say, they are basically saying that we all, or anybody who is criticizing Islamism, who is criticizing these organizations, is essentially Islamophobic. There is this tendency to brush off all criticism as something called Islamophobia. What would you say to that? Why is the left in the West on the same side as Islamism today?
Well, it's not all the left. It's important to notice and to underline that the fact it's left of the left and not just left. You have a left which is democratic and see that there is a problem with Islamism. So we are talking about the more vocable voice of the left, which indeed decided that the Muslims were the new proletariat, and they were the best allies to remove capitalism and neoliberalism. They are the best fighters and the best allies. Islamists are their instruments. What they don't understand is they are also the instruments of Islamists, and they will lose because in this competition they always lose. In Iran, the left has lost. When they launch a revolution, they lose. The left lose, and it profits to the Islamists. So it's a bad calculation. I have this problem in France because these people do not read my book, which is incredible because in the media, that there has been 3 left newspapers like Le Monde, Libération, La Croix, and now Mediapart. They all say that my work is not good, not serious, not blah, 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 but they haven't read it at all. There is no criticism on the contents of the book, but just on me being Islamophobic.
One last question. You've been facing death threats. You are living under police protection. How hard is it for an academic to be writing on such issues today in Europe, which is deeply divided, where we now have cancel culture? How hard is it for you? You are living under constant police protection.
Well, it's not easy, of course. I hope it will not be too long, but it's a fact, and it's also a protection for me to be able to carry on my work, to be able to carry on to organize conference and to carry on to speak, because that's the point, is to not let me ne pas me laisser impressionner, ne pas me laisser faire. Effectivement, et les attaques d'ailleurs ne sont pas que des attaques de menaces de mort, ce sont aussi des intimidations, du harcèlement par mes propres collègues dans l'université. L'université, je ne l'ai pas dit, mais qui est un des premiers lieux qui a été pris en main, qui a été visé par les islamistes. C'est d'ailleurs toujours par les campus que les islamistes se déploient. Et avec l'idée, c'est ce que j'appelle, ce que les islamistes aussi appellent l'islamisation de la connaissance, c'est-à-dire que on ne pourrait penser l'islam que du point de vue islamique. Et alors évidemment, ça fait que soit vous vous convertissez pour comprendre l'islam, soit vous êtes considéré comme quelqu'un qui ne pourra jamais comprendre l'islam et donc jamais comprendre l'islamisme, ce qui est une force très très importante pour certains académiques qui sont rentrés dans ce processus d'islamisation de la connaissance et qui vous délégitiment, qui vous discréditent en permanence. Et pour moi, c'est ça qui est le plus difficile, c'est d'avoir si peu d'alliés, d'être si isolé. Heureusement, j'étais à Berlin la semaine dernière et j'ai vu des collègues qui rencontrent exactement les problèmes. Et nous sommes très, très peu nombreux aujourd'hui à pouvoir continuer à faire ce travail-là, à vivre sous des menaces permanentes. Nous sommes un certain nombre de cette année à être attaqués simultanément. Donc, il y a une volonté d'éradiquer tous les chercheurs critiques sur l'islamisme. Simultaneously, there is at the moment for last year, I mean 1 year ago until now, systematic attack to all of us on the ground of completely fallacious arguments, which is a real problem, because if it was real argument, we could answer, but it's completely outrageous. So what can we say? I mean, what can we answer when you are threatened of Islamophobic? What can you say? There's nothing to say.